feel like.
I know, it's very odd to be speaking to people who you can't see. But good morning, and actually, I wish we weren't having to do this program, but we are. And the reason we're doing it is because we, Penn, stay in contact with parents on an ongoing basis, and this is what we heard from you that is what's needed. So I'm Nancy Rose Dufford. I'm the executive director for Penn, the Pasadena Education Network. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we're a network of now more than 2,000 parents who support and send our students to Pasadena Unified School District schools. We not only help parents like you find the right schools for your family, but once you're in a PUSD school, we provide programs and trainings like this to help parents more effectively engage with their student and with their schools so that their students can be more successful. And then we also collaborate with PUSD leadership to advocate for educational equity and to bring the voice of parents to the district so that they consider it in their decision making. Because we are a small organization and we stay so connected with parents, we adapt very quickly to the needs that we hear from you. And that's why we're bringing you this program today. We'll also be doing a program on Wednesday early evening for parents of secondary students. So if you have an older student and you're interested in finding out more about that, we invite you to join us, or just if you're curious because you have a soon-to-be secondary student. Susan Schwartz, our program director, and Laura Diaz, our parent engagement director, have coordinated this program for you today. And before I turn it over to them, I just want to thank Jeff Albert and Collaborate Pasadena for hosting us. And I assume, Laura, you will let people know that if they need Spanish translation, how they can access that.
Let's have Ada go ahead and give that those instructions right now.
Thank you. Good morning. Buenos días. We are offering Spanish interpretation for this session. Estamos ofreciendo interpretación al español para esta sesión. In a few moments, you will see an interpretation icon at the bottom of your screens. En unos momentos verán un símbolo de interpretación en la parte de abajo de sus pantallas si están en una computadora. When that symbol appears, when that interpretation icon appears on your screen, you need to click on it. Cuando el símbolo aparezca en sus pantallas, tienen que hacer clic en el símbolo, and then you're going to select your language, either English or Spanish. Even if you are an English speaker only, we still need you to please select a language for this session. Cuando aparezca el símbolo de interpretación en la parte de abajo de sus pantallas, seleccionen inglés o español. Todas las personas en esta sesión necesitan seleccionar un idioma y después de seleccionar su idioma estarán listos ya para seguir con la sesión. After clicking on your language, you'll be ready to go. One note about small groups. Una cosa sobre los grupos pequeños, cuando nos dividamos en grupos pequeños, when we come back from the small groups, we all are going to need to select the language of our preference again. So we need to do that every time we go into small break rooms and come back to the main room. Cuando nos dividimos en grupitos pequeños y regresamos a la sala principal, necesitamos elegir otra vez el idioma de nuestra preferencia, inglés o español. If you would like to be in one of the small groups that is only for Spanish speakers, for folks that prefer to have that meeting in Spanish only, please let us know in the chat box that you would like to join that group. Si usted quiere ser parte del grupo pequeño donde hay solamente personas que prefieren hablar español durante esa reunión, ese grupito pequeño, por favor indíquelo en la caja de chat, en la cajita de conversación que usted quiere que le pongan en el grupo que va a estar hablando solamente en español, por favor. Those are all the instructions. Thank you very much. Esas son las instrucciones y muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Ada. Okay, so All right. Has everyone chosen their language? Okay. So it should say, if you are listening in English, you should see down at the bottom of your screen, EN for English. Okay, everybody's there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and go through a few housekeeping tips and the agenda. I'm Susan Schwartz, by the way. I'm the program director for Penn. And so we'll get us started with that, and then we'll get right into the meat of things here. I don't remember how to do this. Okay, oops, we're going to go back to the beginning. All right, so I'm just going to do a few housekeeping tips. We've taken care of the translation. The one other thing that I want to say at this point is that if you did not sign up in advance for this program on our website, if you're just joining us and you had the link, that's great. Welcome. But we'd like you to put your email in the chat if you didn't already sign up online. So that we can follow up and send you resources and materials from this program. So we will be sending all kinds of materials afterward. And if you already signed up on our website, we have your email, and that's fine. But if you didn't, if you're just joining us this morning, it'd be great if you could add your email into the chat so you can get that material. The other thing that we'll do with using the chat is that if you have questions that come up as the presenters are talking, please put them in the chat, and we'll come back and take care of questions at the end of the presentations, so that we'll try to get to as many of your questions as we can, and follow up afterwards as appropriate with anybody who maybe has another question. So those are my basic items for that, I think, in terms of housekeeping. So this is our agenda. I'm sharing my screen. I hope everybody can see. Laura is going to start us off and kind of get us situated. Then we're going to really focus on the things that we parents can be doing to help our children stay mentally healthy at home during this time. Amy Quiroz, who's the Wellness Counselor at Jackson Elementary, is going to be our next presenter. She's going to talk about when it's time to be looking for help. How do you know when you need to get additional help? And then we're going to be joined by Lara Choulakian and Erica Villalpando from PUSD's mental health services and mental health programs. And they're going to talk about what our options are for where and how to seek that help. And then we'll go to questions. So I will turn it over now to Laura to get us started.
All right, thank you. So this is my welcome slide for you. My name is Lara Diaz Allen. I am a parent in the district of 2 teenagers who've been home with me all year, like all your kids. And I'm coming to you from my kitchen, and soon my kids will want breakfast and it'll get interesting. So I just wanted to get started with a little recap of what we've just sort of been through, right? So a year ago, we all got sent home. Our kids got sent home, and we thought it was just going to be for a couple of weeks. And if we were all good and stayed home, that we would be done with the pandemic. But it didn't really turn out that way, did it? And so we've had to adjust to lots of things over the course of this last year. And as you can see in the pictures, we've learned to do things like find toilet paper, bake bread for some of us, learn to cut our own hair. Some of us learned to sew masks, not me, but at least we learned to find who our talented friends were that could get us started with a mask when we could not find them anywhere else. And we also learned to use something called Zoom, which most of us, at least I didn't know existed a year ago. And we learned that pants might be optional when you're having a meeting, and that it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? And that we just don't care where. So it's been kind of a year for all of us. And that's just, the light part of it. we've also been through a lot of socio-political upheaval, worries about the future, worries about, whether, especially for some families, whether we would still have jobs. And it's been tough, even for kids whose families did not go through the worst of it. They've felt a little unmoored, right? And I forgot to say that, while some of us got to stay home, many families where the adults are essential workers didn't have that luxury and had to go out there into a world that was a lot less safe. And especially in the beginning, when we didn't have, protocols in place for how to handle this, there was just a lot of confusion and fear. So our kids have been witnesses to all of this, right? They've seen us trying to adjust. They've seen us trying to not be completely freaked out by what we saw in the news. And they've had to learn to cope. Our kids have had to learn from home, which is something that they never knew how to do. They've had to learn how to be away from their school buildings, their classmates, the structure that the school day provided, the routines that went along with that, right? And so they've lost a little bit of that sense of safety and that sense of control. They've also lost things to look forward to, like whether, like my kid, it would be PE, right? Or it would be, dances at school or story time or whatever that might be. They've lost that. Next slide. They've also lost in many ways that sense of connection with their friends, with their teachers, the ability to play every day out in an open space, move their bodies, and get out that physical and social energy that, as you know, as parents of younger kids, they have a lot of. So I just want to focus on the fact that even though it's been a hard year for everybody, and as adults, we've really felt it, our children have lost some basic things that are needs of children everywhere in the world, and they're trying to adjust to that. Okay, let's see. Next slide. These are a couple of quotes from the New York Times in which kids talk about what it feels like to not be in school. The first one from a 6-year-old. The thing I miss most about school is my friends, but I FaceTimed my friend today and I liked it. The next one is from Sasha, who's 9 and lives in LA. Every day I take a walk around my neighborhood with my parents, and when I see my friends, I'm told I have to stay 6 feet away. I get really sad I can't be with them. I'm also scared they'll never find a cure and I'll never get to play close with my friends again. I'm hoping that things will be back to normal someday. This kind of hits you, huh? So I think, while these abrupt changes that kids have gone through have certainly interfered with their ability to do their schoolwork, and some of us may be very concerned about our children's ability to keep up with their schoolwork. Today, we want to really focus on children's mental health. And I say this as a parent who is concerned about grades because I have older kids, but I think I just want to really bring us back to the fact that, when your children are in elementary, a grade is not going to be something that affects their entire life. But research tells us that prolonged isolation or mental health issues that go unchecked and get worse can really affect children for a long time, sometimes for life. So that's what we're going to focus on today. If you would like some specific tips or help on supporting your children with their schoolwork, we've done a little bit of programming around that, but we can certainly come back and do more, especially as we're looking at coming back to school. So just put that on the evaluations or put it on the chat and we'll make note of that. Okay. So I'd like to ask Amy Quiroz, who's joining us today, to walk us through some of the things that teachers may be seeing, and that you parents may be seeing when your children are attempting to do distance learning. What are some signs that you'll see of distress or of just not being their same old sunshiny selves? Amy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Amy Quiroz. Like Susan and Laura mentioned, I am the wellness counselor. I'm actually pretty rare at PUSD. I'm the only one in the whole district that is assigned to one school, so I'm there full time. And what I do is basically provide that mental health support for the students that can be in groups, going into classrooms and doing social emotional learning lessons, doing individual therapy. So it's nice to have someone that's just stationed at one school and not split up amongst a bunch. So these are some signs that I have been seeing in a lot of the kiddos. And I'm at an elementary, so it's kinder through 5th grade. And it's in distance learning. I know it's really hard because it's kind of similar to this, right? Where some kids are just not comfortable having their videos on. So as a parent, if you can kind of tune into those cues, it's the body language, right? If they're not really kind of trying to sit in front of the camera, or they're more shy, they're shying away from the camera. And it's also really tricky because if you think about it, it feels like there's 30 other eyes on them, right? And everybody's staring at me. So it's kind of, it's really common for the little ones to be more shy, to have their cameras on. But if it gets to the point where they just don't want to turn it on at all throughout the year, right? And they've been in remote learning since the end of last year. So if it's still gotten to that point where it's really hard for them, then that's one of the signs that we can also look for. There's excessive worry and preoccupation. A lot of the iReady tests are coming out, right? Like the diagnostics and getting ready for state testing. Little ones that might have already had symptoms of anxiety, those are just heightened now, because now they're thinking about their performance and, well, I need to get this right, what's going to happen. So it's a lot of that negative self-talk that is happening in their minds. So that's really affecting how they're performing. Additionally, if they are just not wanting to sign into class, there can be something going on there. Maybe they're not feeling confident in themselves, or maybe they are feeling very anxious, or they are showing some signs of, I don't want to say that they're depressed, but there are some symptoms there that can be leading in that direction. Not wanting to complete any classwork, homework, and levels of energy. In little ones, anxiety and depression is seen with very hyperactive or no energy at all. So it's more common in adults to see that isolation, but with little ones, their bodies are kind of experiencing so much that it's hard to determine what is going on. But you know your child best, right? Because you're with them all the time, 24/7 now. So if you see that something is off, or they're not acting the way that they'd normally act, then that can be a sign for you as well to kind of tune in a little bit more to see if there is support that we could provide.
Can I go to the next slide?
Please. Thank you.
Okay.
So these are some tips of what, or how, Laura, how did you want to do this? Did you want to go through it?
Sure. So we thought that we would connect some of the things that parents can do to provide kids with some of the things that they're missing now that they're not in school, right? So we talked about how school, the actual routine of school and the physical building allowed kids to feel some sense of continuity and safety, right? They felt in control because they knew what was going to happen. They had things to look forward to, and they had opportunities to stay socially connected and get enough exercise. Now that that's all gone, we can try to maybe make up a little bit for that, right? So, for example, to feel safe. If your child has a place where they can go when they are not feeling right, when they just don't want to face things, whether it's their bed or a little soft corner that they have in some part of the house, that might help them feel safe, right? To feel in control. You might give them, again, some kind of schedule after school that they can follow, or give them choices. I know for my kids, that's been really helpful, is to give them small choices about things that I'm okay with them doing. Do you want to eat the frozen waffles or the frozen pancakes? It doesn't have to be fancy, just choice. So Amy, I don't know if you want to talk about a few things that parents could do to kind of meet some of the other needs.
Yeah, so to have fun, things to look forward to, that could be something super simple, like, oh, after we're done with homework today, we're gonna go to the park. We're just gonna have a family walk to the park, spend some time outside together, which also kind of goes with the exercise, right? Just getting outside, going to the backyard. If you have a backyard, if you don't have a backyard, then maybe making that a point, like, okay, we're gonna do a family walk today right after dinner. And that makes it, you're also kind of giving them that control, right? Because now you're setting that routine, you're incorporating the exercise, and you are kind of building those connections still, right? You're harboring those connections within the family. Staying socially connected. That could be like virtual meetings with friends, right? Yesterday, actually, we had our first third grade lunch bunch. We had around 40 third graders show up, and it was just, for me, it felt like chaos because everybody was talking at the same time, but they loved it. And it was like, oh man, I haven't seen you since we were back at school. And it's those connections, right? They missed those connections. So having that, if you can reach out to a friend that they might have had that they haven't seen because now they're in new classes, right? Setting those connections for them, even if it's FaceTiming grandma. It's like, oh, grandma, look at what I did at school today. My little one, I have a 5-year-old, and he loves doing that. He draws pictures of his shapes that he's learning in class, and he'll call grandma. It's like, look, I did a circle today. So you're still creating those social connections. It just looks a little different.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
And I have to admit I have to tell you why I have a picture of a puppy there. And that's because for my family, getting a dog has been a godsend, and it's met a lot of these needs, right? Mm-hmm. So if somebody's having a bad day and they're just sort of hating the other humans at home, the dog is the one they hug, right? So the dog gets us out to exercise. And again, it's an opportunity, and it's fun. That you're going to get to go walk the dog at a certain time, or that we're going to go on a hike. So we're not alone. Apparently, a lot of people went out and got dogs during the pandemic. And so you don't have to get a dog if that's not your thing. It's just an example of something that would meet a bunch of needs. So I think this is the place where we can have a chance to share what we've all been trying to do to help our kids. I know I've learned a lot from other parents online, especially towards the beginning of the pandemic, where I had no idea what I was going to do with my kids.
So okay, I'm gonna stop screen sharing for a moment here so we can see each other again. And I'm gonna just check the chat. I don't see anybody who's put that they want to be in a Spanish language room. But if you do, now would be a good time to identify yourself. And even if it's just with a hand, I don't know if you can do the hand raise reaction or something, or put something in the chat, and then we'll make sure that we group Spanish speakers in one room. And otherwise, we're going to just go into separate rooms, and we're going to take a few minutes to just share some things we've been doing with our kids at home. And it can be very simple. It could be anything that you've done to try to keep everybody sane at home, yourself and your family, but especially for your kids. We'll have one person in each room take some notes in the chat just to jot down the ideas that people share. And then we're going to come back and share out a little bit afterwards. And all of the ideas that we share and some of the ideas that Laura and Amy have described and some other ideas maybe, we're going to compile all of the ideas and suggestions and share those with everyone afterwards, so that we are able to get our collective wisdom in one place. So I think we do have a Spanish speaker. We'll make sure that we'll put with Laura, I guess. Yeah. And then why don't we go ahead, Jeff, and let's split us off and just take a minute to share something that you've done at home to try to keep a sense of normalcy, to try to meet those kinds of needs for control, safety, sense of connection, and fun things to look forward to. Yeah, Laura.
I would say if anybody's bilingual and wouldn't mind being in the Spanish group, that way we have more than one person, I would welcome you to do that too. So just let us know if that's okay.
That sounds good.
Okay, good. So we have at least another person, Julia. Cool.
Perfect. Okay. So let's go. We'll take about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll come back together and share out.
Erica, did you want to go into a room? I know you're coming in for the later part.
Hi.
Hi.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. I'll put you in room 3. Hi, Lara. Everybody's in a breakout room right now, so they'll be back in about 4 minutes. I just didn't want you to show up and freak out and nobody's here.
It's only us two. Good morning. No problem.
Exactly. Good
Thank
morning.
you.
Absolutely. Yeah, Erica showed up just a minute ago. I put her in a room, but so you're welcome to join a room if you want. They're just, it's like a 5-minute breakout. Like, what are they doing mental health wise? So.
That's okay.
Okay.
No, that's okay. I'll stay here. No problem.
Okay, good.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to go ahead and make you a co-host just in case you need to share a screen or you want to see chat or something like that. So.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
You got it.
Jeff, does the program run until 11:30 or 11:45?
I think it's scheduled to 11:30.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you for turning off the interpretation feature again, Jeff. I have it on my screen now, so I'll click on it as soon as everybody gets back.
Hi, everybody. That was very quick, but really great. I thought. I want to remind you all that we need to choose an interpretation channel. So English or Spanish at the bottom of your screen.
I want to also let you know, I was typing into the chat when we got bumped back to the main group, and everything I typed in disappeared. So all
Oh, no.
our notes
I
are now
think
gone.
I think it still gets captured. I think we get that, but
Was that 5 minutes?
it was quick, huh? Maybe
It
too
was.
quick.
It never seems like enough, does it?
Okay.
Well, let's take a few minutes to share out, and let's have Laura and Amy kind of help us to relate the things that we shared back to some of those basic needs that we have. And yeah, I know in our group, one of the things we heard was that there were a lot of things people did at the beginning. And we were very creative and had all kinds of activities. And then it just seemed like this is going on and on. I can't sustain this kind of all these special activities over this long haul, and especially since the holidays and the surge, and that's been very challenging. So
I'll relay a little bit of what we got, but I'm wondering if we might have a couple of minutes so that people who didn't get a chance to talk at all could maybe share something, because I know in my group someone didn't get to talk at all. So what we got in our group was just trying to figure out, from kids of different ages and what they were going through. And somebody shared that, again, their dogs were a godsend, that they really helped them out a lot. But that for one of their kids, whatever they were doing wasn't enough. And so they asked for help from actually Amy. And we also talked about having just struggling with having to cook and clean all day, every day, and how that was really getting, especially to moms. And so somebody in our group shared that was me, shared that we had teams of, one parent and one kid teaming up once a week to cook and clean. And so at least that was 2 days of the week when I didn't have to do everything myself. And it gave the kids a chance to learn something new and to feel needed. So that was a helpful thing for our family.
Yeah, in our group, when parent had mentioned that they had done like weekly hikes with the family. So everybody's kind of looking forward to going on that new trail. And it's good for the little ones to kind of get that energy out and for the family too. And then another one, another parent had mentioned kind of adjusting that school a little bit, where if the little one just isn't engaged at all and doesn't want to turn on their video, a lot of like the symptoms that we had talked about in the beginning, just kind of having it on in the background. And she asked her little one, well, what do you want to learn? And then mom can kind of go from there and teach the little one something that they're interested in, because it is more of parent expectations of like, oh, we need to do this, we need to get this done. And it's not really beneficial for the little ones, especially if they're not retaining any of that information. So yeah, and I think too, another idea that you could have is talking to your teacher about it to see if that is something, like, is there anything else that I can do that can kind of count towards this? Because my little one is having too hard of a time. And what is your teacher going to say? No, you can't do that. No, these teachers are more open to helping your little one because they don't want to be in that situation either where it's causing more harm than good. Yeah.
Nancy?
Well, like I said, my notes went away. So anybody from my group who would like to share, please go ahead. Or anybody who didn't get to share. I agree, Laura, if somebody didn't get to share, I'd like them to have an opportunity rather than me talking. But our group talked about hiking, dogs also, turning off the electronics after school. So that way you actually have to engage with one another and do things together, bake, spend time outside. And then talked about in the spring doing things and not in the fall. We had one parent who, she said they rode bikes and had lunch together every day in the spring, but now elementary and middle school have different breaks, so they can't do that anymore. And John, do you want to add anything in there?
I think I shared that that I've been trying to connect my kids on like just enrichment opportunities, like they're doing like origami right now, and just like things that maybe we wouldn't have done pre-pandemic. They were doing kickboxing yesterday with like a teenager from New York City through something called Homeschool. And it was just like, when would you have ever connected with some random kid in New York City to do kickboxing in the middle of the day? And they were kind of yucking it at first, but then they were laughing and sweating, and it was like, okay, all right, we found something that you may be interested in, So that kind of trial by error, but just that enrichment opportunity, I think, has been good for my kids.
I'm just looking at the chat also. Is anybody, I'm sorry, I get distracted by the chat. We will share all the things that show up in the chat as well, but does anybody else want to share something? Maybe someone who didn't get a chance to share during the breakout groups? If you want to, just go ahead and unmute and. Okay. Well, I think this is a conversation that can last a lot longer, and I think it's some of the things that I heard and see in the chat sort of speak to the needs of parents' mental health, our own self-care, and we are actually going to do some programs around that next month. So we are going to go on with our program right now, but we will come back to I think some of these topics, and we will. This is a conversation that we'll try to continue. Laura, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, it's hard to talk about supporting our children's mental health without talking about our own mental health. So just hang in there. We definitely have a program for that. I know for me, I meditate every week, and when I'm feeling crazy, I go for a walk, because otherwise I can't do any of the things that I think I should do for my kids, right? The other thing I wanted to add is that, especially for, it sometimes can feel a little bit daunting when you see other parents doing all these fancy things for their kids, right? Like, oh, we started baking cakes and my children took up painting, and, and I taught my child how to embroider. For parents whose own mental health was not well, or who maybe we were a little bit obsessed with the news, or
Working full time.
or working, right, and that's the other word, working full time. And I think someone needs to be muted somewhere. Yeah, there we go. If we were working full time and we didn't get to do any of these things, we might be feeling a little guilt. But no, we all have done and are doing the best that we can with what we have in present time. So these are just ideas in case you don't have any, right? I know I learned some things from my friends around this. So let me see where I was.
I'm going to go on to sort of or transition to the when to get help, because I want to make sure
Yes,
time
that's
for
where we were.
Their next set of presentations. So I'll go back to the share screen, Laura.
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay.
That way I can find my footing.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So, despite our best efforts, and perhaps we couldn't do anything special, right? There are a lot of kids that are struggling. A lot of our children, and some of the parents mentioned that their kids were struggling, that they needed additional support. And I just wanted to bring up the fact that we're not alone with this. This is something that has affected the whole world, and parents from around the world are actually reporting that they're seeing that their children are having a hard time. So let me go through this window. So I just did a little research, and I just came across, one big survey of parents in Europe. 85% of parents were reporting that they were seeing changes in their children's behavior and mood. And the number one thing that parents were reporting was difficulty concentrating, right? Has anyone seen this in their kids? You want to raise your hand? Because my kids are definitely having a hard time concentrating on school, but not just school, other things too. I would give them an instruction and they just would not hang on to it. And the other things that parents are seeing are boredom. And then about a third of all parents are reporting things around, their kids feeling lonely, uneasy, worried, nervous, restless, and irritable. And then another study in as far away as Bangladesh also looked at just symptoms of major mood disorders like depression, anxiety, and sleep disorders. And just the way that they did it was a little maybe confusing. But if you look at it, about half of the kids in that study were reporting symptoms, whether they were moderate or severe, enough that they would probably want to get help for their kids. So again, this is just to put our children and their possible struggles in some kind of context, that we're not alone, despite anything we're trying, right? So the next step is to figure out, when do we think about getting help? Where is that line where we say, what, I've tried the dog, I tried the baking and the biking and all that, and my kid's not doing well. Amy, do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, so a lot of times when we look at like anxiety disorders or depression, it has to be to the point where it's impairing your social, in like a social form, or emotional, academically, physically. So if it's something that's getting to the point where maybe they have anxiety, like with going back to the preoccupation about the testing, right? If it's getting to the point where your little one just can't sleep anymore, they are having trouble eating or just concentrating, then that can be a time where we reach out and ask for help. And even if it's not to that point yet where it really is affecting them, you can always just check in. Just like do the early intervention, right? Just kind of meeting with someone. If there is someone, I know Laura later on will go through like the flow chart of who we can reach out to there, even if you do have quick check-ins. I know I have a couple of kiddos on my caseload that I just do 15-minute check-ins with every week just to see, is something going on? Do you need any more support? Anything like that? Because you know your little ones better than anybody else, especially now that you're at home with them. You can kind of see like, oh, this isn't how my little one used to act. What's going on? What's happening? So reaching out when you feel when you have that feeling in your gut, right? Like, no, something's off. Or if it is just the moods and behaviors, they're just completely opposite of how they would normally be, and it really is affecting them in everyday life, then that can be when we reach out. And if you,
And
oh, sorry,
and
go
that
ahead.
is, I think that's it, right? It's that gut check, that
Yeah.
feeling of something's not right. Even if you're not an expert, even if you haven't looked up the list of symptoms, there's just something about your kid that is worse or very different, or it just does not seem like the same kid, right? Or it's gone on for too long.
Mhm.
Do you want to pull up the next slide for Amy, Susan?
Sure.
There you go.
So these are some signs that it may be time to get some help. School avoidance. If I know I've been seeing a lot of anxiety in my little ones, and that's general anxiety, social anxiety, being in front of the screen, right? Or even separation anxiety. I see that a lot with a lot of little ones that have parents that are first responders or that are essential workers, right? Because you see this in the news, you hear all these things, and it's like, oh, well, mom and dad are still going out there. Like, what's happening? What's happening to my body? Why am I feeling like this? Distractibility, hyperactivity, sensitive to transitions, right? Because they've had this huge transition kind of happen in their lives. So it's kind of like everything has just been thrown off. And it's like, well, now what? What else are you going to throw at me now? A lot of negativity, a lot of negative self-talk and saying, well, I'm dumb, I can't do this. When that starts to happen, that's definitely a time that we can have those conversations. Low frustration or irritability and throwing tantrums. I feel like these are more and more common now because we're at home all the time. So if you kind of have these that you see in your little one, that doesn't necessarily mean, oh, no, they're depressed, that's it. It could just, these are just some red flags that we can start looking at and seeing what else is going on with the little
Next
one.
slide.
Also with that is changes in eating habits, right? Like I mentioned before, maybe they're not eating as much, or maybe they're eating to the point where that's how they're dealing with their emotions, with that anxiety. It could also come out physically, right? Headaches, stomach aches, the trouble sleeping, persistent sadness for 2 or more weeks consistently, and loss of interest in activities, things that they normally like if they normally loved bike riding and all of a sudden that stopped. It's like, what happened? What's going on here? If your little one is hurting themselves or speaking about hurting themselves, that is a huge red flag, and that's definitely, we need to call someone to see if there is anything going on, because as sad as it is, there are so many suicides that are happening in little ones. And I know it's a super hard topic to talk about, especially at this younger level, but it's a reality, and we really have to be on high alert for those moments where they are saying, oh, well, I don't want to be alive anymore. I'm tired of what's happening, and I'm done. So when they do say those things, those are huge red flags that we really do need to reach out. And I believe you have a number for that too.
Yes, we do. So I think we're going to, I'm going to do the stop share here and come back for a second. We're going to introduce our next two speakers. And I'm just looking to see, there's Erica, I see. Erica Villalpando and Lara Choulakian. Okay, you're both here. I just wanted to double check. Let me take a moment to have our next two speakers introduce themselves, and we'll go into sort of now, what do you do when you feel like you need to get help? Where can you turn to? Who do you reach out to? What resources are available? And we have two managers from PUSD's mental health services and mental health programs with us this morning. So Lara and Erica, Lara, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then Erica, and then we'll go to your presentation next.
Or good morning, everyone. I'm Lara Choulakian. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm also the program manager of the mental health program here at PUSD under Student Wellness and Support Services. We changed our title, so Student Wellness and Support Services. And I'm joined here by Erica, and I'll get into what I do and what Erica does, but I do want to introduce her too.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Erica Villalpando, also a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm the manager for our PUSD Mental Health Services program. And yeah, that's it. We'll get ready. We'll get started.
All right. Shall I go ahead and go to the slides, ladies, and you'll take
Sure.
it from there? Okay, I'll go back to there. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm slow.
No worries.
Okay, there we go. All right, there we go.
So it can get confusing, all the services we do have. I just do want to give you a little overview of my little department and Erica's department. So we're both under the umbrella of Student Wellness and Support Services. I'm the manager for all the internal mental health services. I oversee clinical social workers within the district, licensed clinical social workers.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Lara, let me just, before, I'm just going to interrupt you for a second. We do have someone interpreting. So if you can, as much as you have to say, try to slow it down just a little bit and take your time. Take your time.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry.
So, no, thank you for that. Thank you for letting me know. So we do have internal mental health services. We have Master of Social Work interns under my program, clinical social workers, licensed clinical social workers. We have interns at 12 of our sites. So some middle school sites, some elementary school sites, and a high school site. And we provide services to students who are either privately insured, underinsured, uninsured. And then I'll have Erica differentiate her program and what that program looks like. But I do want to mention that we have what's called a mental health consortium. So we have 7 LA County Department of Mental Health contracted agencies that service our schools. So these 7 agencies, what we've done in the past, is, no worries. So what we've done in the past is have these 7 agencies split up all of our, I believe we have 24 schools now. So each agency has a handful of schools that they service, and they primarily see students who have Medi-Cal. So for example, PUSD Mental Health Services is one of our agencies. We have Pacific Clinics, we have Hillsides, 5 Acres, Hathaway Sycamores, DeVille, and Foothill Family. So these are our 7 agencies. So each agency covers maybe anywhere between 2 to even 8 schools. And they provide services again to those who have primarily who have Medi-Cal, but some of our agencies do have funding to see students who are not insured or maybe sometimes privately insured. And so what my program tries to do is try to bridge those gaps. We try to service kiddos who do have, maybe they have Kaiser, maybe there's a student who has Kaiser, and Kaiser is only able to provide services once a month to a student. And parents sometimes are not satisfied. Of course, once a month is nothing. So we're able to fill that gap. We're able to, if within my department, if let's say within my department, we're not able to fill that gap, we always look for resources within the community. I'm always in communication with all the agencies, and so is Erica, our mental health consortium agencies. And we make sure we place the student where services are available for the appropriate services. So that's kind of my department. I'll hand it over to Erica so she can kind of differentiate from the services that I provide, my team provides.
Yeah, thank you, Lara. Yeah, so as Lara mentioned, within the school district, so the program that I manage is like these other agencies that Lara's talking about. What we do is we have a Department of Mental Health contract. So that means we provide services to students within PUSD, PUSD and their family that have Medi-Cal, and these are called Medi-Cal beneficiaries. So that's who we primarily provide services for. And if you can look at it, it's easy to look at mine and Lara's program as the 2 internal mental health providers within the school district. but our program is primarily for Medi-Cal students and families. Um, and we provide individual psychotherapy, we provide family therapy, we have a psychiatrist, we actually have two psychiatrists that can provide medication support for the students that we work with. We also have behavioral specialists that help support the goals of the therapy sessions. So we are considered a school-based program, which is that we primarily see students within the schools. We're also school linked, which means that it's a very small amount of students that we see at our offices because we primarily see students within the schools. As do these other agencies that are part of the consortium, is they provide mental health services to students at their office and also go into the schools. Like Lara mentioned, we split the schools amongst the agencies so that we can all be able to provide services to PUSD students. PUSD is a large school district, and there is a lot of need for mental health services. Lara and I would not be able to manage it on our own, so we're really happy that the district has a very long-standing relationship with these agencies in the Pasadena area who have been in the area for a really long time providing services. So that's how we differentiate. We work together very well. If our program gets a referral where we can't service the student for whatever reason, we look to Lara's program to provide the service and/or look to these other agencies. We have an ethical responsibility to make sure that we link any student that's asking for help to help. Now, that might mean that they have private insurance and we have to say, go try to get help from your private insurance, but call us back if there's a problem. They call us back, then we say, okay, you weren't able to access, now let's figure something else out. So we do our best to try and get students linked.
Erica and Lara,
Yes, thank you, Erica.
can I just break in and ask for a point of clarification? You're talking about seeing children at the school site versus somewhere else. What does that look like now?
It's all telehealth services for us. So we use Google Meet and also telephone. So telehealth and telephone is what we've been doing since March 17th, and we're coming up to a year. Now, I will say that some of the other agencies do have some in-person services, but it's based on an individual basis until it is safer to, fully return to these other offices these other agencies of services that they offer. So all telehealth for us, for sure.
Right, it's telehealth for us as well, and what we use WebEx, Google Meet, we use phone if needed. Almost all agencies right now are remote and using telehealth. Again, like Erica explained, if there's a higher need that needs an in-person service, some of these agencies are able to provide that using the correct PPE, maybe having the sessions at the student's house, but outdoors, taking into consideration all the safety guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
I think Laura, you had a question. Yes.
Yeah, so I know at a school like Jackson where they have an in-house social worker and the families know them, they would know to go to her. How do parents know where to go at their schools? Like, what's the point? Who do they call? Do they call the agency? Do they call their principal? How does that work?
Great question, Laura. So on the screen, we have all the school sites listed along with the mental health providers. Now we have various options here. So parents can either directly call, so locate your school site, locate your agency. You can directly call the agency and just request services and they'll take it from there. Or what you can do is if you have a relationship with the child's teacher or maybe the admin on campus, the counselor on campus, you can ask them and say, these are my concerns. These are the symptoms I'm seeing. Is there help out there? And they know to submit a referral. And once the referral is submitted, the agency, be it one of these agencies, be it my department, we receive that referral, we triage, we look at the referral, call the parent, get more information, figure out, figure out your insurance status, and then move forward from there. Either we assign an intern, we assign a clinician, we refer you out, but we will help link and guide you to the right resources. If there is ever a need, if you're ever confused, my information should be listed somewhere. If not, I will provide there's my email address.
It's there.
Perfect. Please reach out to me. My team and I were happy to, help link you to services, kind of guide you through the process. If there is, private insurance can get confusing. So I can, my team and I, we can help you kind of navigate the private insurance system and the Kaiser system, or the wealth of services we have in Pasadena and the PUSD community. So feel free to reach out. We're happy to help and link you to the right services.
Yeah, Lara, I'd like to add that if all else fails and you're a parent wondering, what do I do? How do I seek help? Talk to your school administration. They know the agencies that work with them, or can absolutely and they can absolutely submit a referral. For us in our program, gosh, I want to say maybe 90% of our referrals come from school staff. So school administration, if you're at a middle school or high school, the school counselor can be a first point of contact as well. For us, I'd like to say, we'll talk about it a little bit later in terms of what we want to do to make sure that contacting all of these agencies and all of our programs is easiest. But for our program, we'll make sure that you have all of our information, but you can email us, and we have a general mailbox. It's kind of really easy. It's mentalhealth@pusd.us. We'll include it. You can call us. You can go on the PUSD website, and our referral is linked there. So we'll make sure that all of these links and information are available for you. And then the goal is for all of these agencies for us to have those links to their websites and or referrals also for you to be able to get to easily.
Right, and don't feel obligated to fill out a referral form. You can directly just call the agency. And like we mentioned before, Eric and I both mentioned, reach out to your student's teacher, reach out to the admin, the counselor. They know where and how to refer, and reach out to either of us. We're happy to help. And this information will be sent out to you for sure.
I just noticed with the flow chart showing up, I thought I was sharing my screen. I just wasn't sure. It was not appearing. Okay. I will put that up right now.
No, we could see the list of mental health agencies, but not the flow chart. That's why I was wondering about that. I know we worked hard on that flow chart.
I know. I thought it was what I was sharing. It was what I was looking at. Sorry. How about now? Can you
there we go. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
Excellent.
Yeah. So the point that, just to reiterate what you were saying, that this is the general flow, and we will provide this flow chart and that list of mental health agencies. We'll email that out to everyone right after the meeting, so you'll have that. You don't need to be copying things down from the slides. But in any case, what you're saying is, if you're trying to get a hold of someone at an agency, or you're not sure, or you're having some confusion or difficult time connecting, talk to your principal or another staff person, or contact Lara or Erica directly.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Correct, exactly.
Outside you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm going to actually go. My slideshow sort of cut off in some strange way, so I'm gonna stop sharing for the moment. We're gonna take some time now to go to questions. But before we do, or maybe what I'll do is, because I lost my slide that had the resources that I wanted to share. Lara, why don't you do you want to just take a look through the chat and see if there are any questions that we can start addressing from the chat?
Sure.
Yes.
And I'll see if I can just find my resource slide.
Yes.
Okay.
Who was trying to talk? Lara?
It was me. I saw one question that I can address. Maybe you can too. What is Young and Healthy?
Yes.
We saw Young and Healthy on the flow chart. So Young and Healthy is a community partner of ours. They're a nonprofit agency, and they're able to help link you and your family to receive Medi-Cal. So let's say you're uninsured, you don't have Medi-Cal, a family's in need of Medi-Cal. Young and Healthy can help link you to those services and get you that insurance. But they also do a whole lot of other things. They have a dental clinic, free dental clinic for students. They provide as needed, goods for your families, for lower income families. They do just a lot of great work. They provide, if we're unable to, for some reason, within my department, Erica's department, within community, we're unable to find a resource or a mental health therapist for a student, we reach out to Young and Healthy, who then is able to locate, therapists who work pro bono, who can provide a handful of services, a handful of sessions to students. So we definitely do partner with them, and they're a great agency, lots of great work that they do.
I will also say that they do preventative work. So they've been working with PUSD's teachers and students on trauma-informed care and mindfulness, just to teach them to calm down their nervous system, so that they can be able to learn and to grow. And we'll send a resource here also to you. On Facebook, they have, I think once a week, they have a mindfulness coach that works with kids. And so you can just plop your kids in front of a screen and have them learn how to regulate their breathing and calm their system down. So it's a wonderful organization, and we'll send out there we go. We have the link right there. So thank you for that question. Let's see what other questions.
Oh, why don't you go ahead and look? I'm going to go ahead and pull my last screen up with some resources here that we're going to.
Yeah, I don't think we have any questions.
Well, I'm sure we will, but in the meantime, okay. So
I'm not seeing any.
So while Laura is reviewing the chat, I am going to just say that we also put a link to our program evaluation, just participant survey. It's very short, but we really appreciate your feedback. It helps us make better programs. So I think Nancy has put the link to that in the chat. And these are some of the things that we will be sharing with you after the program today. The slides, the ideas that we all had for supporting our kids at home, signs and symptoms, the mental health services flowchart, and the list of agencies serving each school with those phone numbers, some other crisis and emergency resources. And then we have a number of programs that are coming up. We will be doing a similar program to this one that's geared more towards middle school and high school students next Wednesday evening. That's on Penn's website, but we will, we'll share that information as well. And that is going to have, Laura, you want to say something about that? A little bit.
It's actually a little different. Yeah, so we're having someone join us who is actually on the board of Young and Healthy. She's a psychologist who focuses on trauma-informed care. So she'll kind of lead us through what the brain has been up to during the pandemic, and how to understand children's exposure to the stress and trauma, and kind of how to approach supporting teens from that perspective. So I would say, even if you don't have a teen, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about that approach, I encourage you to come join us.
And we will record it, so you'll be able to see it later as well. Parent University, the PUSD family engagement group, is going to also be doing some workshops, or a workshop on March 3rd, and we don't have the flyer yet, but they will be, I think, are working with some of the social work interns to provide some tips and some assistance to parents. So that's coming up. And then we're going to, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to try to do some programs about how we support our own mental health and how we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of our family a little bit later next month.
Well, and I think, as we are talking about schools reopening, there's a little bit of an extra anxiety. So just one more thing on our plate. So it's a good time to be talking about, how do we transition? How do we talk to our kids about it? So feel free to send us emails with questions or with suggestions for things that you need around these mental health topics. We're learning with you. We're also in the soup of this. So let us know what it is that would be useful to you and to your kids, and we're happy to try to provide it.
Yeah, so I think we're just going to open it up to questions. And if you the easiest way is just maybe to type something in the chat. And you went through and looked through the chat, I think, already, Laura?
Yeah, there's nothing in the chat.
Okay. We can also take.
We can take a couple of live questions.
Yeah, if people just want
We have a
to
little time.
go back to gallery view here. Yeah, just don't forget to unmute yourself if you wanted to ask a question, Julia.
Yes, good morning. My question is obviously specifically for mental health. What or if there is a plan in place or in the works of how to transition students back into school, particularly with younger students. I particularly am very concerned with separation anxiety, because we experienced this on a norm just going back to school in the fall, especially with little ones. So I think and believe that that's going to be something that we're going to have to look at as a parent in particular. So I don't know if that's something that you guys are talking about already, maybe?
Absolutely, Julia. Great question. Absolutely. We're preparing to transition back, and there's definitely going to be students who are attached, afraid to go back. There's going to be a lot of concerns and anxiety. So there's definitely work in the works around this topic, definitely.
Yeah, to add, one of the things we're talking about is just a very recent conversation is how to, in a trauma-informed manner, how can we welcome students back, and also staff? How are we going to help students, staff, and parents be ready? You know, what steps can they take so that it's as smooth of a transition as possible? I mean, we've never, I don't think in our lifetime we've never experienced something like this, so it's very new. You know, some of the things we normally talk about when there is separation anxiety is really preparing, planning, being empathic to the difficulty that might come up, and really approaching your children with being gentle with gentle reminders. You know, if you never talk about transitioning back and tomorrow's Monday and it's the first day back, it's going to be rough. So there's a lot of things we can do just in general, what we normally talk about with separation anxiety. There's also transitional objects that might be helpful for little ones. So we will definitely get those things ready and disseminate some information about that.
And Julia, there are some parent leader groups that that ask questions and provide some advice to the district. I'm on one of those, the LCAP PAC, and so we'll make sure to ask about that, how we're going to do this, because it's tricky, right? Like, we're not going back to a completely safe world, right? And so, you know, normally, you know, you would say, oh, you'll be fine, right? Relax. And here we can't relax 100%. We still have to keep our masks on and keep our hands clean and all that. So, and stay 6 feet away. So it's really tricky, and we should prepare, and teachers need to prepare. And I know as parents, we can't probably let our kids see just how anxious we are, because they suck that up. They know we're concerned. And so, you know, we'll have to figure out a way to relate to them that, yes, we'll have to do things a little differently, but not give them our full 100% anxiety, because we'll just make it worse. But thank you for your question. I'll make sure to jot it down so it's something we keep in mind as parent advisors.
Just want to also add that the state has approved a lot of money towards local school districts to mitigate the learning loss that has happened, and included with that learning loss is mental health. So they're not putting a lot of restrictions on how districts can utilize that money, so that if school districts want to use it for mental health services, they can. And I know that there are some school districts, LAUSD being one of them, that is considering going back to school earlier in the summer and using those first few weeks as only opportunities for social emotional learning, because they're recognizing the challenges that students are going to be having when they come back into a regular school environment after being away for a year. So we will be talking to parents, also finding out sort of what parents would like to see happen and sharing that with district leadership.
I just want to add, I think it's important as parents, please let the administrators at your schools know the things that, any ideas you might have to help with the transition, because what we'll be doing is kind of collecting information. What have parents said to each of the school sites? What can we do? And it's really about what parents are asking for, what students need, and what the schools, are able to kind of manage and provide and have the capacity for. So speak up, let them know what you need.
So Mary just typed in how to support teachers as they return. And I don't know, Mary, did you want to actually elaborate a little bit on that? Are you thinking about what we as parents need to be doing, or what the school district needs to be doing to support the teachers?
Yes, I think some teachers right now, they're nervous about school opening, just like the parents and just like the children. And
Sure.
so when they get back into school and they have hopefully a reduced class, hopefully, and they have a child who is not accustomed to school. Some children haven't been in school because they closed kindergarten last year and this year.
Right.
So what do you do with that child who just don't want to learn? Who, after the parent leaves and you have hopefully 10 children in your classroom, what do you do with that child?
So as a teacher.
As a teacher.
Mm.
I mean, this is all new for everybody. So
Sure is.
we're not mental health specialists. I wish all teachers were, but what can, and we got distance, have to stay distant from children. What do you do to really support that child?
So I don't, Amy, do you want to say something about how you're working with teachers at Jackson?
Yeah, so at Jackson, it's really just kind of hearing the teacher out. What do you need? What supports do you need? We talk a lot about self-care just because it is a lot. It's a lot to take in, and then kind of going back. It's also being kind to your teachers. I know there are some, as parents, we get worried and we want to make sure, like, okay, I want to make sure that my little one is safe and that nothing's going to happen. But it's a lot. Like, that's another added layer that the teachers have already been thinking about. So I think just really being kind to your teachers and talking to them and letting them know, like, hey, I am worried about this. How can we kind of come together as a team to help our little ones, instead of, you need to do this for my little one? Because we don't really know what that's going to look like. We don't know how many students will be back or what. It's a completely different year now. It really is a whole different world that we're trying to navigate. So I think, yeah, just being kind to those teachers, letting them know, like, offering support. Is there anything that you need? I know for my little ones, the teachers were just like, we just need cleaning supplies. We just need the wipes, like something super simple like that, that's one less thing that they have to worry about. And reaching out. Yeah.
But Mary, it sounds like maybe you're asking for some kind of more specific training on how to handle their re-encounter. Is that correct?
I think so. I mean, because in the past we had, certain children that we didn't know how to deal with, but now this is an added layer. And usually training from the district, it's not enough. We really need to get in contact with counselors or mental health specialists who really, really know what to do.
Got it. So so I'm doing, at Jackson, I'm not sure about the other schools, but I know that I'm doing similar to this, like signs to look out for. How can we help the little ones specifically? What does that look like? When is it time to kind of reach out to the parent and say, hey, we need more support on this, or we need maybe for me to kind of come in and check in with the student. So with my teachers, I feel like I really try to make it a point to let them know, like, if there is any mental health support or if there are any red flags that you see, let me know and I'll be there and I'll support you. And then we can kind of again, like kind of come together as a team and how we can better help this student. So
Okay.
yeah, just really providing that training for those teachers to look out for those signs for the little ones.
But Mary,
Yeah.
thank you for your input. We can definitely pass this on to the district, like among all the different things that you teachers need to worry about, how do you work with kids who are not used to school or are, very anxious about being back at school? How do you do that? And is there some kind of method that you guys can follow? I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
Can I add
Thank
that's
you.
something that all of the agencies, including our program, does at the beginning of every school year, is that we go out to schools and go out to their staff meetings, and we introduce our services. We talk about, mental health and symptoms that are going on, what to look out for, how to refer. So I think, definitely for this school year when we returning from the pandemic and things to look out for will absolutely be a topic. So we already have things in place that we've done historically, and now we'll add to that kind of introductory, the meetings with staff members, with the teachers, what to look out for after the pandemic, and what services are in place that they can seek help.
And I'm going to add one more thing to that as well, Erica. So a lot of our therapists do collaborate with the teachers. So when they open a case and have a client in your classroom, they ask the parent if they're able to collaborate with the teacher. So they're able to work with you on the specific behaviors that the child is displaying, so that you and the child, the therapist, the child, the parent can all get together, come up with an effective plan to manage the behaviors in the classroom, manage the behaviors at home. So it becomes a collaborative effort. So look out for that as well. You're able to collaborate with the therapist, unless the parent declines for that service. But most of the time we do want to have that collaboration. And so the therapist is able to work with you on how to help you learn how to manage or understand what's going on and manage that behavior in the classroom as well.
I have a question, actually. Since it does appear that elementary school will be reopening within the next short term period of time, what on a practical level can parents of elementary students do now so that their child is ready to re-enter school in a few weeks or so? Are there certain things they should be doing to help them so that it won't be so traumatic for them?
Right off the bat, the first thing I can think of, and Lara and Amy, if there's anything to add, is start talking about it. Start talking about it and preparing for it. I have we call her a little preschool dropout because she was supposed to start preschool and didn't make it because of the pandemic. So we talk about there's going to be nap time, there's going to be this. So start talking to them about, hey, school's going to start at some point soon. Let's think about what we need to get ready. Let's get our backpack ready. I mean, if you ask me, I don't know where the backpacks are. Let's get the backpack ready. Let's make sure you have a lunch, whatever you need, start talking about it. I think is the absolute first step in gearing up for it. A calendar is great for elementary age kids to say, once we know a start date, to say, or even now you could say it's tentatively looking like April or whatever the case is. Let's count down. What do we need to do to get ready? What snacks do we want for the morning? Just start talking about it, I think, is the best thing, and include them in any kind of planning for it.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Laura.
Well, I want to talk about that while responding to somebody's question on the chat. That some kids have been really isolated, right? They don't have siblings. The family has been extremely cautious and hasn't really gone anywhere. And so the thought of going back to school may be especially worrisome. And so I would say, I'll just speak from what I had to do with my kids who for months just didn't want to go anywhere. I just started luring them out with food, basically. It's like, who wants to go with me to pick up, something that they like, so just little trips that feel really safe, where you're not getting out of the car, or where you go around the block, and have a little walk, or where you go to the park, where it's sort of slowly coming back into a larger group, because otherwise it can feel like, you don't know what the air smells like outside, so you really have to start with small steps so that it's not such a drastic change. Okay, what else do we have?
Great, Laura.
Yeah, sorry, Laura.
I was just going to add, No problem. I was just going to add that, reminding students, the ones that are fearful about coming back, about the pandemic and contracting the virus, explaining that, the district has been working on a safety plan. Each school has been putting in place safety measures, and we're all here to protect you. What have we been doing now that to protect ourselves? We're wearing masks, so we're going to continue wearing masks at school. We wash our hands, so we're going to continue washing our hands at school, and just helping ease their mind that these same things that we've been practicing at home are going to be practiced at school, and there are adults on campus to keep you safe, and we're all here to keep you safe. So it's just making sure that they understand that, yes, it's not going to look like what it used to look like, but we're kind of used to it now, where we're all wearing masks, and we get to show off our new masks to each other now, and keeping that 6-foot distance. That's going to happen into the classroom, and kind of making it more easing their anxieties, because you might have your own anxieties about this, and we're modeling for our students. We don't want to catastrophize everything. We don't want to make it a don't focus too much on what could potentially, all the dangers that could happen. Focus on the positives and everything we do have in place, and how we have kept safe, and how the district is working to keep all of our students safe.
There is, I just put into the chat, and we'll include this when we mail out resources.
Yes.
There's a link to a video that PUSD put together actually a couple months ago, I think, about what that return will look like. And it's nice. It does help you to visualize that. And I think that's often really useful. So.
Well, and just making that connection that, restaurants are opening. I mean, whatever your opinions might be, restaurants are opening, we can eat outdoors, and look how far they spread out the tables, and, and so just showing them that there are other places where this is happening, and that schools will do some version of that experts have figured out will keep kids safe. Yeah.
Anybody else have questions we haven't had a chance to hear from yet?
Well, there were some from before.
Yeah, there's a question about, it says, knowing when to push your kids to focus, keep trying with school, and when to take a break. Who do we ask if we have concerns about our children's mental health? I wanted to say this earlier. One of the kind of first lines of defense as well, if you is seek out, talk to your child's primary care physician can be a good start. It's definitely helpful for a lot of parents to start there. Say I'm concerned about this, and they can absolutely help with, okay, well, that could be typical. Let's keep an eye on that. They can absolutely kind of start a little bit of a guidance. Primary care physician would be a good start as well. I just wanted to say that in case that hasn't been talked about.
Well, and I think too, doing schoolwork can be both a problem and also a symptom. So, some kids are not doing their schoolwork because they're having such a hard time, right? And for some, trying to stick to a routine of doing some schoolwork may be helpful. For others, especially if they're suffering from anxiety, just the constant insistence that they get a certain grade can make it worse. So, your kid, but if you're feeling like you really don't know where that line is, you've no idea, then, I would say reach out to your school. And at least, again, my kids are a little older, but elementary, I mean, if they didn't do so well one day, I mean, it's not the end of the world, right? And so, we're here to preserve the relationship with the parent. And when in doubt, if you have that choice of completing this assignment or, protecting your child's mental health and their relationship, I don't know what the psychologists here think, but, I would go with the relationship because that endures, right? So yeah. That's all I can offer on that one. It's a tough one.
We're at 11:30 here, so I want to thank our presenters and Jeff for hosting us, and everyone for coming and spending some time with us this morning. I did just, let's see, I think re-enter. Well, we'll re-enter the link to our feedback, our form, our participant evaluation survey. If you have them, could take a minute to fill that out, we'd really appreciate it. Yeah, I think we're ready to wrap up here. And so it seems really short. And I think again to those breakout rooms where it was so quick. And I think it's really valuable to find each other and just share what we're going through and what we're dealing with. So we will try to build that into some of our programs next month, where we really talk about what parents need for us to take care of ourselves so that we can be taking care of our little ones as they go back. And I've missed anything, Nancy, and you want to say anything else before we leave? Well, thank you all for joining.
Just that we appreciate everybody coming to us, and that please, on your evaluation, if there's something else that you feel like we can help you with, let us know, because we are trying to adapt what we do to the needs of the parents so that your kids do have a successful back to school opportunity. And we'll keep letting you know what's going on at the district level. So if you haven't signed up to get our weekly newsletter, please go to our website. That's free, and you'll get our weekly e-newsletter, or join us on Facebook, because we put like up-to-date information. And for those of you who do want to know about what's happening with the reopening for K through 5th grade, the Board of Education will be discussing that this coming Thursday at their meeting, and it starts at 3 p.m. For public comment.
All right, thank
That's
you.
it. Thank you so much. Good luck. And please feel free to reach out with additional questions or ideas for future programs.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
And thank you to our speakers.
Yes, thank you.
Really appreciate your time.
Our pleasure. Thank you.